Hey, welcome to our Henderson General Baptist Church Facebook and YouTube online worship service. At this point, we're looking at Bible study. It is Wednesday, and there are several things from Sunday's message that I want to talk about, but mainly about the word apathy and how I talked about it on Sunday, and I'm not sure how well I did on the online service, but I know I'd never defined what I meant by that word on Sunday in person. So I want to take a moment to talk about that. I want us to take a moment today to approach God in prayer for the events that have happened. I specifically said Sunday I know I did on the in-person, but that we spend too much time watching the news, and we don't spend enough time talking about the good news. So I want to address that for a moment today. But I want us to think about how we can continue on in ministry and missions outreach. Because I want you to know that there's hope. There's always been hope, and there'll always be hope. But there's also evil in this world. And this stand that we are called to take is real. Satan, he hates you. And he wants you to become apathetic about life. What do I mean by that? Let's take a couple of moments here to go through some of the things that we have for ministry and missions outreach, and then we're going to look at Ephesians chapter 6 again. I've got on there Ephesians 6, 1 through 9. It's actually 10 through 13 is what we're going to be looking at tonight. So I want you to think about how we can trust God in and through the circumstances of life. How can we trust God through and in the circumstances of life, much like what has happened in Texas? And oftentimes, as we try to go deeper to grow stronger, we've become apathetic to it. We don't realize that Satan's coming after us. And events that happen, tragic events, they're not political. They're evil. And when we see this and we have these things happen over and over again, when they don't touch us, we become apathetic to it. Again, I use that word. But as we go deeper to grow stronger and we force ourselves to slow down for just a moment, I encourage you to think about some of the tools that we have. I want you to think about right now media. We still have several people that have had the invite sent to them through email that have not signed up yet. If you have not signed up, I want you to think about texting this number 49775 and then texting the word Henderson GBC there. You can also use this as the image. If you just take your phone, put it over top of it on the camera mode, and as it's over top of it, you'll see like a yellow link, and you can click that link and go straight there for the Right Now Media. I encourage you not to become apathetic in your walk and your journey with God, that we'd put him on the back burner, to become lukewarm, if you will. I want to remind you that as we look in this Vacation Bible School approaches, there's the link there for you to be able to register. Make sure you go to the Facebook page and share that post, like that post. Let's bump that post up so that way others can see it and know that we have something of value coming. There is the link for it, the QR code for it, if you need to register somebody for you. So as we talked about on Sunday, there is a battle for your life. Do you understand the nature of the battle? For us, we see the battle, and it's so clear whenever we see something so tragic that has happened in Texas with these school kids that did nothing wrong. And oftentimes people wonder, well, where is God in these kind of scenarios? And I said on Sunday multiple times that we have a tendency to blame God when something bad happens. And rarely do we give God credit when things good happen. So the reality is this battle that is facing for your soul, for my soul, for our souls, it's a real deal battle. And the question is how is apathy holding you back? I gave this from Sunday, and I give it to you again for this very moment. To think about we as a church and how do we take a stand? How do we take the proper stand? But too many of us have become apathetic towards the church. And what do I mean by apathy? I want you to think about apathy in this way. We see love, and we know that emotion of love, and we see hate, and hate was on full display. Hate for life, hate for others, hate for rules, regulations, hate for love, hate of humanity. We see that on display with stuff that happens, that has been happening, just like in Texas. It's such a strong emotion that even us as Christians, we struggle with the idea of, how do I approach this? I'm supposed to love my enemies and hate what is wrong all at the same time. And how do I manage through this? But somewhere in the middle of all this, these strong words of love and hate, happy and sad, we have this word apathy, that it just really doesn't even resonate with us. For some, it doesn't even resonate that evil is running rampant in our world today. And that we try to figure out how we're going to politicize it. We're going to figure out what's next and all this, when in fact there's a spiritual warfare going on for the lives of our boys and girls, and there's a spiritual warfare going on for the men and women of this world in which we live, not just here in the United States, but around the world. There is a spiritual battle, and we think we face these physical things because this thing is happening. It's so real. It's so in your face. And yet we grow apathetic about church, and we wonder, where's God? And God's saying, well, where have you been? You haven't been to church. You took me out of everything. Bible, you're apathetic about it. You took me out. You've taken me away from everything. And then you wonder, where is God in this moment? Let's take prayer out of school. Let's take prayer out of this. Let's just continue sitting back and becoming apathetic about it because we want to do what is politically correct. That no longer do we sit by and cherish life anymore, that we continue having these discussions from all the way back from the 70s to now. It's still an open discussion about Roe v. Wade and the whole idea of whether or not we're going to be pro-choice or pro-abortion, or I'm just pro this, or I'm pro that, I'm pro-life, I'm pro. And we all want to make it be that we're pro something, but we don't know how to make the stand. And we become apathetic. And some of the greatest indicators of apathy is the fact that we see decline in churches, attendance. We see decline in Bible reading. We see decline in prayer. We see a decline in worship on a daily basis. Not just that, we see a decline in the church people who are godly people and have been going to church all their life, and then we see the thing that has to do with the tithes and offerings. And just a small smidge of a percentage, 3 to 7% of church membership. Not here at Henderson. I don't even know what the percentage is here. I've avoided even doing that, of thinking about it. But I want you to think about how 3 to 7% even give God his tithe. As a whole, from all the churches around, I mean, we've become apathetic that the things of this world are more important. And then all of a sudden something happens and we go, well, where's God? Where's God? When you have abandoned God and we as a culture have abandoned God, and then we wonder, where is he? Apathy holds us back. And we forget that the spiritual adversary that we have, he feeds on and he needs you to have fear and doubt in your life. And I keep having messages come up. I got to change my thing so it's do not disturb. There we go. See, Paul says this, and I said it on Sunday morning. He said, a final word, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on all of God's armor so that you will be able to stand firm against the strategies of the devil. Put on the whole armor. And I talked about it, and I never used them, and I never said them, and I'm not going to tonight. I'm waiting until Sunday. But so many of us, we think we have the armor of God on, and yet we've become apathetic. We'll show up to church when it's convenient. We'll read the Bible when it's convenient. I'll pray when I'm in need. I'll wonder where God is when something bad happens. And it's not that we don't love God, but we don't hate him either. And we're just kind of in this, I'll take it and go. But if I miss reading the Bible, it doesn't matter. If I miss going to church, I'm not drawn that says I have to be there. We've become comfortable. And apathy becomes comfortable in the non-feeling, the non-emotion, the non-struggles of life. And then all of a sudden we have some tragic event happens and everybody wants to blame this or blame that or another. And yet he says, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. And yet we're apathetic. We're allowing Satan to make us not stand and not allow us to stand in the middle of truth and refuse to move out of the center of it. So we do as a culture. It's pretty easy to see what our culture continues to do. Abandon God, abandon his values, abandon his calling, abandon his word, abandon. And we all of a sudden go everybody. And I had somebody recently ask somebody in my family, well, I'm going to talk to Chad, but does he have this phobia? And they named it. See, I come in my walk with God to see people's through the eyes of Jesus. But we live in a fallen and broken world, one in which is horribly, horribly in trouble, hopeless, helpless, and yet apathy will hold us back. Hold us back because we want to dig in and become political. We want to dig in and say these things, and yet we have no hope to offer because we haven't been living the hope. We've not been living the struggle. We've not been living these things because we have abandoned the reality that Jesus Christ has a purpose and a plan for your life, and yet we take it apathetically. We don't strive to stand in the middle of truth and refuse to move out of the center of it. Not for other people, in your own life, in my own life. See, truth is important, but we become apathetic to the truth. The Bible tells us that our conscience gets seared. Man, that's a horrible thing to find yourself in. That the God of the universe, He speaks. He speaks through His word. He speaks through His ministry. He speaks through missionaries. He speaks through the Bible. And yet, whenever you hear it, you kind of go against it. And people will say, well, does Chad have a phobia of this? And that's code word for I don't want to hear what the Word of God says. I don't want to hear what it happens. I think God should behave this way. I think God should behave that way. I think God should do it this way. As if we've become God. Let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you very clearly right now. You aren't God. I'm not God. And we will never be a God. Our culture has become apathetic to the church. We've become apathetic to the Bible. We've become apathetic to prayer. We've become apathetic to life in general. And then these things happen and all of a sudden we just want to talk politics. And the reality is whether or not it's Roe v. Wade or people out doing mass shootings like they have here of recent, and we see it pop up in the news and these events that happen. And then this apathy becomes rage, and we become rageful towards God because God didn't do something about it. God didn't do anything about it. And yet the church is not standing in the middle of truth. Because we want people to like us. And we don't know how to stand firm in the faith. And we don't even know the strategy Satan has for our life. This tragic evil that has taken place. I have to remind myself that the Bible says, for we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places. I hope you grab a hold of the understanding that we can become apathetic all we want. We can get angry at human beings and see evil in a face. But the reality is that if we are apathetic to the church, if we're apathetic to God's truth, if we're apathetic to standing there and putting on the whole armor of God and realizing what that armor is, Satan's strategies is going to continue to come after us, and he's going to get after us, and apathy is going to rule the day. I just don't even care. That when you have a ministry and missions outreach opportunity, and then you don't support it, you don't reach out, try to spread the good news, you become apathetic towards telling others about the good news. Paul says, therefore put on every piece of God's armor so you will be able to resist the enemy in the time of evil. Then after the battle, you will still be standing firm. Stand your ground. How is apathy holding you back? In Joshua chapter 1, verse 6, as we go a little deeper into God's word about this strong and stand. Joshua chapter 1, verse 6, and Joshua is taken over for Moses, if you will, as the leader of the Israelites. If you don't know about the Israelites, they are God's chosen people, and we see this in the Old Testament book. The Old Testament books. And what we see is that as we approach the New Testament time with Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, where Jesus comes and dies on a cross for us, that the old way of doing things is renewed with the grace of God and the good news of who Jesus is. But this is how it was. And the leader of the Israelites at this point had moved from Moses to Joshua, and it's time for them to now go into the promised land that God had promised them for hundreds of years. And he says, "Be strong and courageous, for you are the one who will lead these people to possess all the land I swore to their ancestors I would give them. Be strong and very courageous. Be careful to obey all the instructions Moses gave you. Do not deviate from them, turning either to the right or to the left. Then you will be successful in everything you do. Study this book of instruction continually." Now, I know what he's talking about and what book and he's talking about, and I realize that we now have the Bible, but are you continually studying his word? Are you continually in prayer? Are you continually looking and making sure the armor of God is on your life, covering your head and your body, and knowing that you have shoes on your feet and a belt, and I don't tell you what those are, because ultimately many people are apathetic towards realizing how serious this is. And these events happen, and you all of a sudden in your mind think it's politics. But I'm telling you, we are not fighting flesh and blood. We are fighting the principalities and the rulers of darkness, the evil age that is part of this world. And these people who are doing this are hopeless and helpless. And the good news that we've become apathetic about, that you wouldn't tell somebody about the good news because you're too nervous, you're going to mess it up, and you become apathetic and go, no, God's not going to call me to do this. God is calling you to do this. God is calling you to take a stand, to put on the whole armor of God, and to not be apathetic towards the church, not to be apathetic about the Bible, and to know that if I miss it, I have missed something of value. May I, as the pastor, always prepare myself to stay true to God's word and to say something of value for this current day generation that the Bible wants to be very clear. See, I have to stay in God's word, or events that happen like in Texas will drag you down. We'll be sooner or later become apathetic to it because it becomes normal. It's not normal. And that's not what we are to do. When you find yourself meditating on God's word day and night, so that you will be able to obey everything written in it, only then will you prosper and succeed in all you do. This is my command: be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged. It's kind of tough not to be discouraged, isn't it? It's kind of tough not to be afraid. When every time you turn around on the news, there's something bad happening over and over and over again. How is apathy toward the church holding you back? How is apathy towards the Bible holding you back? How is apathy towards prayer holding you back? How is apathy towards worship holding you back? How is apathy towards life holding you back to where it doesn't really matter? I want you to know that God is with you wherever you go. In Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 23, then the Lord commissioned Joshua, son of Nun, with these words, "Be strong and courageous, for you must bring the people of Israel into the land I swore to give them. I will be with you." Apathy pushes God to the background. I want you to know today, if you feel hopeless, helpless, discouraged, afraid, you doubt your faith, I want you to know that you are loved by a heavenly Father who sent his Son, Jesus Christ, to walk this earth and to die on a cross for even that gunman in Texas. Yep. We're not fighting against flesh and blood, though it seems like that's what it turns into. Those kids didn't deserve it. Those families didn't deserve it. For some reason, we will inevitably blame God for why he didn't do something. I'm not going to blame God. I'm going to blame evil. And I'm going to blame Satan, who hates every single one of us and wants us to see us all be destroyed and to all fall so far short of God's glory that they end up in hell for eternity. May you take this opportunity as we go to the Lord in prayer to sense and know the love of our Heavenly Father. And I want you to embrace the idea of, am I on fire for God? Am I hot? Am I cold? He does not want us to be lukewarm. And I pull up this picture one more time as we go to the Lord in prayer. Lord, I know as I approach this day and I approach life, I don't have all the answers. Lord, I know I've said a lot on a Wednesday night devotion Bible study time. Lord, I encourage the ones who have stuck this far to share the post. Not just share it, but put something in their post when they share it that identifies what resonates with them. Lord, help us as a church view ministry and missions, outreach, as not a part of our church, but as our church. Lord, we live in a fallen and broken world, one in which sin rules the day. Lord, help us to trust you, to follow you, to love you. Lord, help me to see, and Lord, reveal to me the areas of my life that apathy is ruling the day and holding me back. Lord, when I slow down in my prayers to you, Lord, remind me. Lord, when I fall short of reading your word for myself on a daily basis for myself, not just to prepare for a message, but for me, to have that walk and talk with you, Lord, that I don't become apathetic, that I feel that urge to get back in, to read your word every day. And Lord, I do. I study so hard. Lord, let it not be just what I can give, but what I can receive through you. Lord, help us as individuals become the body of Christ. Lord, help me not to stand alone. Lord, help other people right now approach your throne. Lord, as we move from this place and prepare ourselves for next Sunday, we pray for your peace and your love for each and every one of those families. Lord, give us opportunities. Help us to see the opportunities for ministry and missions outreach. And let us not become apathetic to the call that you have for each one of us. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.